My name is Teresa Santa Lucia. It is February 29th, 2020. I'm on the Hanson Historical Commission, and this year is Hanson's 200th anniversary. And as part of that anniversary celebration, the Hanson Historical Commission is conducting oral histories of some of our long-standing residents here in Hanson. And today I have the pleasure of interviewing a long-standing resident, Ed Gronlund. I'm very happy to have him here with us, and I think we'll just launch right into the interview if that's okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll start by just asking you to give your name, the date of birth, and where you were born.
My name is Edward E. Gronlund, all right? And I was born 1938, July 27th, 1938. And where I was born, in Boston City Hospital.
Okay. Now, can you give me your parents' names and your siblings' names as well?
Ooh. Ralph Gronlund, Edith Gronlund, and my children.
Your siblings. Your brothers and sisters.
Oh, siblings, okay. I have one brother, Ralph Gronlund.
Okay.
And he was also born in Boston City Hospital.
Great. And where did you grow up?
In Hanson. I moved to Hanson in 1940.
Great.
And that's where I grew up.
And where did your parents move in Hanson?
They moved to Hanson in a very small house at 640 West Washington Street.
And why did your parents decide to move to Hanson?
That I really don't know. He wanted to get out of the city, I believe.
And where were they both from?
Well, my father was from Mattapan, and my mother was from Brooklyn, New York. And they met through my father's sister.
Okay. So they decided to leave city life and move to Hanson in
Yes.
1940. And did you grow up in the house on West Washington Street?
We stayed in that house on West Washington Street for approximately a year and a half. And then we moved from 640 Washington Street to 154 West Washington Street, 1 mile away.
And why did you move?
We moved because the house that he was going to buy was owned by a man who went back and forth to the shipyard with him, and there was an accident in the house, and the man wanted to move out of the house. So we asked my father, would you like to buy it? He says, yes, how much would you like for it? He says, what will you give me? And I don't know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And he bought 16 acres of land and became a farmer.
I was going to say that's a big jump from being coming from the city to moving to suddenly having 16 acres.
When he moved into the second house, there was a young heifer, chickens, rabbits, pigs, and I think that's all. The only thing he never had on the property was a horse. Then my brother got a horse later on, so
all those things came with the property.
All the things came with the property, and when we was still living in a small house, and before we moved into a big house, my mother walked 1 mile every morning, go feed the animals, and then go home, and I walked right beside her, and then at supper time, back, fed all the animals again. She did that for don't know how long. Until that heifer was bred, and she had a young heifer, and then she became the milker. First thing in the morning, out there milking the cow. Unbelievable. You know.
Now, can you tell me a little bit about your childhood in Hanson? You know, what schools you went to and some of your memories of growing up in Hanson?
Okay, you want my memories of my childhood? Is that what you're saying?
Maybe start with the schools that you went to.
All right. I went to West Washington Street School, and they just redone that all over again. You probably have seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, did a wonderful job. And I went 4 years in that school. Well, 3 years in that school, and then there was 1 year in the portable school in the back on the side, which I don't believe it's the one down by the Indian Head School, but one of those went up there. And I went to the first class in the Indian Head School after that was built. I went from there up to there. Oh, I went 1 year in the Thomas Hall. Now, you probably don't remember the Thomas Hall.
I remember the Thomas Hall, which used to be the first library in Hanson on West Washington Street until it burned down.
I lived right up the street from that.
Yeah.
And it got burnt down, and we won't go into that, okay?
Okay.
Okay. But it got burnt down, and it was gone, you know. And I went to school there on the second floor above the library for 1 year.
And how many classrooms were in that building? Do
One.
you remember? Just one classroom?
One big classroom upstairs.
What grade was that?
Fourth.
Fourth grade.
Fourth grade, yeah. So then, boom, 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 from the Indian Head School, I went 1 year to the high school in Whitman, which is a police station now. And me and the teachers didn't get along because I talked too much. And I went into service, and then I went all over the world. Thank you. Yep, I went in the Air Force.
You were in the Air Force.
I was in the Air Force, but I was ground equipment.
Okay.
You know the little vehicles out on the flight line on the airport? That's what I did, pull everything out to the airport. Out and I had a wonderful time.
And where are some of the places that you traveled to?
In the service.
Yes, in the service.
I went to Texas, boot camp. It was nothing. And then Air Force, you know, bunch of sissies, I guess. Anyway, then from there I went to South Carolina to a big air base, which is long gone. Now it's not. And then from there I went to Philippines. No, from there I went to Japan. I did 18 months in Japan. Had a wonderful time. Couldn't speak their English though. And then from there I went to the Philippines. And you know what TDY means?
No.
Training duty off that base. So I went from Japan, I went to the Philippines for a short while. And then from there I went to Philippines, Korea. But we were just there a very short time. And Vietnam, very short time. I don't know what we fought for. So, and then I got out of the service in 1960. I married my bride in 1961.
Now, how did you meet your bride? And who is your bride?
Huh?
Can you give your bride's name?
Now,
Yes.
Gail Gronlund
Okay.
was Nihil. All right. Now, where did I meet my bride? I met my bride in the third grade. What's that look?
I think that's great. That's wonderful.
Third grade. And we went all through school together, up to high school. And then I went in the service. And you won't believe this, I don't believe. I got a letter every single day from her.
Really?
That many. I still got them.
Do you still have them?
Yep. So. And
Did you write her every day?
No. I did write to her. You
Yeah.
know, I did write, but I wasn't a good writer. But I did write. But every day I got a letter from her.
That's wonderful.
And she had the most wonderful mother in the world. Not taking nothing away from you. A wonderful woman. And like I tell everybody, how could I go wrong not marrying her? From a wonderful person produces, and she has been.
What was her mother's name?
Her mother's name, yeah. Wait a minute. Nihil. Why don't we go back to that?
Okay. So you met in third grade and you started dating when? In high school?
Third grade.
You started dating in third grade?
Her mother took us all over the country.
Really?
Yep. Took her to the movies, took us to dancing, we said square dancing and stuff like that. All over. My mother didn't have a license, she did it. So she was wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person.
That's great.
Yep.
Now,
And
when
her
you...
father was different, but that's okay.
Okay.
I went to, like a good guy should, I went to him to ask if I could marry her daughter. He says, yep, good luck. But he was good, he was good.
He was good.
Yeah.
So when you got married, where did you get married?
At the Catholic Church here in Whitman.
Holy Ghost?
Holy Ghost, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And did you have a party afterwards at the church or in Hanson?
We had a party afterwards, but I guess everybody tells us we missed a good party.
Oh, really?
We just went back for a little bit and then got in the car and left, and everybody said they had a good time.
Did you go on a honeymoon?
Yeah.
And where
we went
did you
to
go?
New York.
To New York.
Yep.
Very nice.
2 city people in the big city of New York.
Now, once you were married, where did you move to?
You're kidding me.
Hmm?
Hanson.
But where in Hanson?
140 West Washington Street.
So you stayed in the family home?
No, that was 154.
Okay.
We moved to Whitman, right here on the street that comes right out up here. Broadway,
Mm-hmm.
3rd floor, for about 6 months to a year. And then my father gave me a piece of land. I built a house, my brother built a house on the other side. And then we moved to 140, from 640 to 140 West Washington Street. And I've been there since.
So it's pretty fair to say that the majority of your life has been spent on West Washington Street.
West Washington Street, yep.
That's great.
Yep.
And did you and your wife have children?
Had 3.
Okay, and what are their names and ages?
Their name is Kurt, which is the oldest,
Mm-hmm.
and Nanette, which is the middle child, mine, and the 3rd one is Keith. He lives right here in Whitman.
He lives here in Whitman. And the other 2, did they live nearby?
Kurt lives in Taunton, or just this side of Taunton, Berkeley, I think it is. And Keith lives here in Whitman.
Mm-hmm.
And Kurt lives down in Plymouth, I think. No, wait a minute, where does Kurt live? Yeah, he lives in Berkeley.
Mm-hmm.
Nanette lives in West Bridgewater.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And did they go through the Hanson schools?
Yes, they did. Yep.
Okay.
Yes, they did.
Great. I would love to know a little bit more about your time in the Thomas Hall. I haven't heard anybody talk about Thomas Hall as a library. And so if you could just maybe give me a little bit of your recollection, since you went to school there, recollections of the library itself and how that building was used.
The library was downstairs,
Mm-hmm.
and we used to go from upstairs because that was the 4th grade, and they used that library just like they do now. And it was a big classroom. You know how big the hall was. Had you ever been in the hall?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know how big the hall was up there, and it wasn't full of kids, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that where it was, and that's what we did in just the 4th grade, 1 year.
Do you remember the library? Can you describe the library?
The library was just a big hall with a lot of books. I mean,
Yeah.
and there was one little lady there, check you in, check you out.
Yeah.
But I never did much business in the library, you know.
Yeah.
But we sorry to see it go. But yep, and then they had a fire escape, and I used to go up and down a fire escape instead of in and out the front door, and I get in trouble all the time.
So as someone who has lived in Hanson for the majority of their life, do you have certain memories that you'd like to share about Hanson back then, or just thoughts on how Hanson has changed over the years?
Well, I had something I wanted to tell you. That, like you asked me, something that happened that probably nobody knows.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just waiting to see if you know. You know where Home Street is?
Yes.
Okay. the continuation of Washington Street if it went straight, right? Well, that was dirt when I moved to town. Well, the first 200-300 feet up to that first house was tar. And it wasn't even tar, it was just oil.
Mm-hmm.
And then from then on all the way up to High Street, that was dirt. But it also didn't go the way it is now. When you go up Home Street, and well, Home Street kind of bears like this, it kind of went straight and into the woods, and through the woods, and then come out at the next white house on the other side of the street. And then they eliminated that, and that was still, and I think it's still dirt, and they tarred the rest of the street all the way up.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't tell you what year that was in. I can only guess probably late 40s.
Okay.
Late 40s.
Hmm.
But a lot of people don't know there's a road back there
In the woods.
in the woods.
Oh, yeah.
I know the highway department does because the street line is still on the map, is way over there. But the real road is,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, if you slow down, just as you start going up, do you know anybody on that street?
Yeah, I know that street.
Do you know anybody on it?
Yes.
Avery?
Yep.
Okay.
Davis.
About 2 houses before Avery's, that's where that road started going into the woods. And if you get right there, that one spot, you can still see that little road in there that nobody knows it,
Yeah,
But the street line is still there.
that's interesting.
If you want to build a house in there, you got to be so far from that street line.
That's interesting. So now tell us some more about your, things that you have noticed change or events maybe in Hanson that again, this is our 200th anniversary and there's all kinds of different events that are planned. Maybe
I don't know what they all are. I really don't.
But maybe there are events in the past that you had participated in and have memories of.
In the town hall, I probably was talking about way back when the PTA, Parent Teacher Association, they used to put on little shows. Did you know that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, there was a group, and they all painted their faces black and stuff like that, and it was the colored people. And I don't know if you know John Diaz.
Yes.
Okay. No, I guess you wouldn't know John Diaz, but anyways, he actually was one of those straight men. Colored his face black, but can't do that now.
Yeah. Times have changed, right?
Times
That's
have
not
changed,
something that would
And
be acceptable now. Right.
They had a good time too, doing that stuff. But other than that, I was kind of a homebody.
And did you continue doing agriculture on your property after you moved in?
When I moved in, all my children belonged to the 4-H. And my daughter had goats, and my son had sheep. One son had sheep, and then the other son had sheep, and it decided not to live, and then he didn't want nothing to do with the animals anymore. So, but he does now, but that took too much out of him, But my oldest had sheep, and my daughter at one time she had 14 goats on that property. 14 goats.
And did you go to different fairs with them and
To
show
all the
them?
fairs.
And
We went to Eastern State every year. We went to Eastern States with the goats.
yeah.
The sheep, I think he only showed the sheep once a year, and he got sick of the sheep. He had the sheep, but he didn't want to do the 4-H anymore. Should have him talk to George.
George being my grandfather, who
George
was
being
a
your
big
grandfather, yep.
supporter of 4-H and who
He
showed
was-
sheep.
he
Yeah.
was- Yep. But I want to talk a little bit about your property. You know a lot about your property?
Well, I would love to hear you give some information. So, just for reference, the property is Red Acres Farm
Red
on
Acres
West
Farm.
Washington
I was
Street
gonna
as
say
well.
that, yeah.
So we're neighbors.
Yep.
Yep.
Now, do you remember the big barn that was out back there?
Not the big barn that's there now. There was a different big barn.
Is the old barn still there? Right straight there? Maybe it is still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
Well, we changed it, me and John Diaz change it from a cow barn to a sheep barn for George
Mullen,
Mullins.
my grandfather.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you do when you change it? You take all them stanchions out and gone, and then when the head is hitting that way, there's a trench behind them to catch what goes in that end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we filled those all in and concreted them all over, me and John Diaz again. Yep.
So you had a big part in rehabbing that barn.
Rehabbing this back to being a sheep farm, a sheep
Barn.
instead of cows. Yep.
That's great.
Yep.
What are some of your favorite places in Hanson over the years?
Favorite places? Well, I could say JJ's, but I don't drink.
But JJ's was a maybe
Pub restaurant.
a
right.
restaurant
Yep.
and a bar that was on the corner
Of 58 and Washington Street,
West Washington Street. Yeah.
East Washington Street.
Yep.
And that burnt down.
And that burned down. It's no longer there.
They got him.
Yeah.
Yep. They got him. And that was nothing, right? But we used to hang around there. And then the hitching post
Mm-hmm.
in Hanson. We used to hang around there when we was young kids.
So was the hitching post, maybe you can give a little bit of information on the hitching post. Was it a restaurant back when you were a kid?
It was a restaurant. It was a hitching post. And it had been a hitching post for far back as I can remember. And it was a small restaurant, but all the traffic going to the Cape down 58, which that's the way to get there then, always stopped at the hitching post. Always stopped at the hitching post.
And what was the restaurant like back then? What kind of food did it serve?
Delicious, just like now. This girl who has it now is doing a wonderful job.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yep, good food. But like I told my bride again, that when it stopped being a restaurant for a while, a person bought the house, and he had a horse, and he stabled the horse in the hitching posts.
Really?
Yes. On the first floor, he didn't change anything in it. He just stanched there, and then the horse used to go in and out the back door. And she don't believe it, but that's
And
true.
what year was that around?
That was probably in the early 50s.
In the early 50s.
Yep.
That's interesting.
Early 50s. No, I told her. She says, yeah, but we scrub it out good.
I bet.
Yeah. She's a good girl.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. I had a 80th birthday in there.
You had your 80th birthday.
Yep.
Oh, well, tell us about your 80th birthday party.
In there?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I had all my children, and they gave me where I wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, oh, I want to go to the hitching post. The hitching post? I said, yeah, I can walk. But I didn't. But as you know, I'm little. But anyways, in there, I had my 3 children,
Mm-hmm.
my 7 grandchildren, and you wouldn't know one of them was there. Best behaved kids. I don't know what they just behaved. And everything went so good. The food was excellent, and I can't tell you how many people was in there. You know, quite a few. And everybody ordered something different,
Mm-hmm.
and they all come out at the same time. Impossible, it did.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, you're a great advertisement for the hitching post.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
It's a great place.
Great.
So,
What other places in Hanson have you or your family spent time at?
very few, very little.
I'm thinking about like Camp Kiwanee or the town
Well,
hall.
we used to
or,
go swimming up to Camp Kiwanee.
Yeah.
Before the buildings was way back there, but it was just a place to go swimming,
Mm-hmm.
and then they actually took care of it and fixed it up good. We used to go there, ride our bicycles down there. We wouldn't do it today in the street, but anyways. Yeah, we spent a lot of time down there. And what else did you say?
Well, a lot of times people, when I've asked them about places that they spent time with their family, they talk about the town pond in the winter, going ice skating.
Oh, yes.
And
But I
ice
didn't do
fishing.
much ice skating because I wasn't a good ice skater. But right in back of my house when I was growing up, there's a pond, Cushing's Pond.
Cushing's Pond, right?
You ever heard of that?
Yeah, maybe tell us a little bit about that area back there.
It's all dried up.
Mm-hmm.
somebody built a dam to bring it back to being a pond, and it lasted through one big rainstorm, and out went the dam, and they never brought it back.
Where was the dam built?
The dam built was right on the corner before your house, right on that corner. The dam was right way down in back of that big house.
The Stories house.
Huh?
The Stories, the gray house, the gray colonial house on West Washington Street?
The big one.
Behind that, yep.
Coming up from your house, it's right in front of you.
Yep.
Okay. Who lives there now?
I think it's the Story family.
Story. Yeah, and then there's a big hill down to the dam. The dam was right directly in back of their house. And you know where that river comes out.
No, please tell us.
You're telling me.
Well, it comes from the other side. It comes down behind on West Washington Street to the Blueberry Farms.
Yep, right
yes.
there.
But I don't know if it goes the other direction.
The other direction, it's just a stream that keeps that water going.
Just a stream.
What was that, Route 58? Yeah.
And I've never actually explored back there, but I've heard that there used to be a lot of cedar swamp back there. Do you have memories of a kid going back there and what it looked like?
We used to live down there and come home with wet feet all the time and everything, but we did a lot of activity in there, especially when they did freeze. There was a little bit of water, even after the dam. You know, we could skate up and down the river because it wasn't a fast-moving river, but we used to go skating down in there. And there's 2 stone walls right through there. Now, I don't know what, way back when, 2 stone walls. And it's a big lake. If you ever, I don't know if it's on the map. It just says Cushion Pond. I don't know if it shows it on the map though, does it?
I think that some of the older maps do show it.
Probably, yeah.
But I don't think that most people know about that area back there. So.
Yeah. No, my father owned all that land up to the pond, the water line on the pond. Yeah. Let's see what else. But that's all we did. You couldn't go swimming, nothing but ice skating you could do down there. Yeah, because the water didn't move, very slow, But wish we never lost the dam, but
yeah.
That's so.
What else has changed in Hanson over your lifetime? Either good things or bad things. I think there's probably both.
Good things are bad things.
Both?
No, good things are bad things.
Oh, good things are bad things?
When I was growing up, I always kept on complaining about all these little projects going on,
Like what? Can you give me an example of little projects?
The little housing projects.
Oh, I see.
With the lollipops there, go in and go out.
Little developments.
Little developments all over the town. The town growing up didn't like that, Guess what I did?
Explain.
Oh, I thought I had before that we put in, my father said, when he passes away, tear down his house, put a road in there. So quite a while after that, me and my brother both out of the service, and we says, why don't we do it? So we did it. We were quite old at that time. That was in the late 50s, late 50s, early 60s. We put a project in there, 8 houses, and retired.
And what's the name of that road?
Okay, Green Grove.
Green Grove.
Green Grove Lane.
And for reference, your house is on one side of Green Grove Lane,
and my brother's is on the other side.
That's right.
And my father's is right dead in the middle. And why Green Grove? Green Grove is green pastures in Norwegian. And Green Grove in English is Gronlund.
I didn't know that connection.
Yeah, so that's why it's Green Grove.
Green Grove.
Green Grove.
So the Green Grove is a nod to Gronlund.
Huh?
Green Grove is a nod to Gronlund.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So one of the things was little developments that you've seen that have happened.
And then I go and do it,
Right.
So, and other things that just the developments and town getting bigger and bigger, and you don't know anybody anymore. In the old days, growing up, you knew your neighbor 3 miles away, So.
And how did you meet your neighbors when you were growing up? Were there social functions in town that allowed you to do that?
Very little, mostly through school. And if your neighbor was a half a mile away, it was your neighbor and you went and visited her, you know? Like who owned your property before Mullins. You know what his name was? Robar.
Robar, right.
Robar, Stanley Robar. And he owned both sides of the street like you do too, right? So he was a cow person, and like we changed it over to sheep. So.
But what were the reasons that people used to go visit each other? Was it just purely social?
Social,
It was all
absolutely social. Yep. Like we lived at that time when we was really a kid, and my mother used to go see people down where the Hanson Market was, which is not anymore, right?
Where was the Hanson Market?
The Hanson Market was right on the corner of Washington Street and Route 58, where the little fire station is. It just got smashed up again.
Yep.
Yep. The Hanson Market was right there. It burned down too.
There's a lot of buildings burnt down in the history of Hanson. Yeah.
That I think that was Fry later or something. But yep, that burnt down.
And what was the Hanson Market? Was it a grocery?
Grocery store. Yep. Yep. And we used to walk down there and get our groceries and walk back. We didn't go up Brockton all over the place. Had to just walk down the street.
And I imagine there was opportunities for people to socialize.
In there.
In there.
Oh yeah, it was a place to gather.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a small building, but good size for, you know.
Are there other places that you remember where people tended to gather and meet up?
No.
Like the town hall, were there ever events at the town hall that you remember going to?
They had, like I say, what was those shows?
Yeah, they used to have different
Used to have those in there.
theatrical acts.
Yep. Stuff like that upstairs, you know. And then the town took that over too.
Those, because the town hall, I've learned in some of these interviews, used to be a school as well.
Upstairs.
Yeah.
4th grade.
4th grade.
Yeah.
That's great. Do you want to talk a little bit more about, after you got out of the service, your profession and what you did?
I got out of the service and I went into carpentry. My father was a carpenter. But I went into the carpentry before I went in the service. You know, I got out of school and then I had to go to work, Dad says. So he brought me and I joined the union, got in the union. I had to go through an apprenticeship. And I only stayed doing that a very short time, maybe 6 months or a year. But seeing I joined the union, my union thing kept on going. And when I got out of the service, I was almost a full force carpenter as far as time went, but I still had to go to apprentice school. But that was good. I went into a 1st grader and I got out of high school, out of the service as a high school graduate, you know. So that was good. And what else did you want there?
So did you then work as a carpenter?
I worked as a carpenter up until I retired.
And were your carpentry jobs in Hanson or were they in other parts?
I was in a union and I got a job from this contractor in Quincy and he took me in as a father too. And I went from an apprentice. I had to do apprenticeship for 1 year as an apprentice with this general contractor, and I was with him for 30 years.
And who was the general contractor?
It was Louis Pascalucci out of Quincy, right out of Quincy Center. Yep. And I went all over Massachusetts doing what he built mostly was churches. Yep. He had 7 churches at one time, Catholic churches going at one time.
Wow.
You remember Cardinal Cushing?
Cardinal Cushing in Hanover?
In Hanover.
Yes.
Well, that's where he's buried, in Hanover. Cardinal Cushing's buried in Hanover. And my boss built that little tomb up on top of the hill where he's buried.
Oh, really?
Yep. And Cardinal Cushing would go into my boss's office with a set of plans under his arm, And it was his little voice. You remember his voice?
No, I don't.
Oh, well, George, build me this church. No money passed it. Build me the church. And he had 7 of them at one time going.
Wow.
Yep. All over Massachusetts. I'll go by with my kids when we were driving around and say, whoop, we built that. We built that.
That's great.
Yeah, oh, but good. He kept me going for 30 years.
Wow.
30 years. Yep.
And since you retired, what are some of your hobbies and activities? I see you outside all the time in your yard doing landscaping.
That's my hobby.
Uh-huh.
That's my wife's hobby. I know you're going to see all those flowers that we were planting this last year.
Yeah.
My grandson come and planted all those flowers, and they're all coming up.
Great.
Yep. He was good to me. Yep. But you want to know something else?
Do you have anything else that you'd like to talk about in terms of your time here in Hanson and what Hanson has meant to your family?
Well, I'm Hanson. This is my town, no matter what. I was on the board, you know that, or they don't know that, right?
Well, tell us a little bit about your service for Hanson. That would be
Yeah.
great to hear.
Again, 30 years on the Board of Health.
On the Board of Health.
Yep. And nobody went out of my office mad at me. I was a chairman quite a while, and then somebody else took over, and then I went back as chairman, and then enough is enough. I have a plaque down the south, 30 years on the Board of Health.
Can you tell me a little bit about the work that you did on the Board of Health, and what are some of the things that you worked on?
Well, that's a different situation because we take in all kinds of health problems and sewage systems. That was our biggest thing was going on at the time was sewage. Is everybody was putting sewage in. They have a health agent go and watch them dig perk holes, see where the water is and isn't, and stuff like that. But it was mostly in the board. Other stuff comes in, but you know, they always think of the Board of Health as the bad people. But there's no bad part going. You know, you have to go and close somebody's house down. You don't do that. You know, you just tell them to fix it up. But the Board of Health has got a big name with bad reputation, but it's not that at all. Except they don't always want to do what they have to do, but that's,
yeah.
But I had a good time there. My diploma says almost 30 years, almost. I said I was in here 30 years, and my secretary says, right on the diploma, or right on my, almost 30. Yep. But I had a good time in there.
Now, why did you volunteer for almost 30 years on the Board of Health? What was it about the Board of Health that made you interested to serve in that way?
I had a problem with them, not the Board of Health, with the disposal area. That's something else I want to bring up to you. There was a disposal area.
You mean the transfer station?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It used to be the dump.
The dump.
Yep. Well, do you know where the dump used to be?
No, I don't know where it's used to be. Yeah.
You know the restaurant right on Elm Street, as you go around the corner? What's that little restaurant? You know where Elm Street on Main Street is?
Is it Moe's?
No.
It used to be Phil's?
I guess it is Moe's.
It used to be Phil's.
It used to be Phil's, right.
Yeah.
Right across the street there's a big cliff.
Across where
No, in the vacant spot.
the Cafe Deli is in that area?
No, the deli's down that way a little bit from
Okay.
Right across the street, there's a big cliff. You
Okay.
just backed up to the cliff, dump it out.
Really?
Honest to goodness.
And that was the official dump or transfer
Official?
station?
No,
There's
dump.
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 So just where people dump their trash.
Just dump their trash. Isn't
And
that
did
terrible?
most people try to burn their trash first and then they dumped what
Well,
they
a
couldn't
lot
burn?
of people had the big barrels out bad and burned some of their stuff, but most of your trash and garbage and everything right out the back. And then, of course, Mr. DEP found other things when they found out, you know, it was there quite on. But when I moved into town, it was, and then they opened up that one up there, and that was almost as bad.
So now, can you tell me when they stopped using the dump that's across from the Elm Street? What year did that get closed down?
I'm going to say that got closed down in all around the mid-50s.
Okay.
Mid-50s. Yep.
And that's when they moved everything to the transfer station
Transfer
that's in town
station,
now.
which was still a dump, right?
Right.
It was a landfill, really. It was a landfill. And then now it's a transfer station. You know.
So you had had some questions about the dump, and that's what got you started in your public service career?
The problem was what they was doing up there, you know.
At the new transfer
At the
station.
new transfer station, some things was bothering me. You know, I went to the Board of Health and I didn't get no satisfaction, so I ran for the job. I had it for 30 years.
That's great.
It was great.
That you
But I liked what I was doing.
were,
Yeah.
you know, you weren't satisfied, so you ran for office.
Yep. Yep.
That's great. What would you say to people now who say, you know, I don't have time for serving on committees or participating? What would you give them in terms of advice, since you did something for almost 30 years that obviously meant a lot to you? And
I don't like that life, but that public life, for those who, it's good for you to do that for what, and there was no money involved.
Right.
We never got paid. Finally, the union got in there, but that's a whole different other story. But anyway.
for the employees,
Yeah. But we never got paid for doing what we were doing. We just did it for your town. You do what you do. You do what you do. So.
Do you think your participation on the Board of Health for almost 30 years helped you
Everything else, yes.
feel like a town member even more?
Yep. Yep. I did something for my town, right? That's
Right.
what I did, and I had a good time. And like I say, I never had anybody go out, when I was the boss, I never had anybody go out unhappy. And they don't like some things, but one person who was different, but we won't talk about that.
So we have about 5 more minutes. I just want to give you the opportunity, if there's anything else that you'd like to talk about in your oral history of the town of Hanson, if there's anything else you'd like to mention or
Better when you
say
ask
about
the questions
Hanson.
than me take off the top of my head, other than the things that's grown in the town of Hanson.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes grown too much for the little town, but we're going to take care of that. But the town is a good little town, nice little town, getting bigger. It can't get much bigger, I don't think, right? But
What would you like to see for Hanson in the future?
that's tough. No, that's tough. It can't get better.
You think it's as good as it can get?
I don't know how it can. I mean, the town of Hanson is a good little town. Everybody don't know everybody like they used to, but I don't know.
Well, that's great. So I want to thank you very much for your time and for coming out and sharing with us some of your thoughts about Hanson and your experiences here.
I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
Yep.